Hello, friends and enemies, heroes and villains. Welcome to Epic Realms presents Off the Pod. It's not a podcast, sort of podcasty podcast. I hope you all are doing great, having a great time. I am joined by the one and only Tom, also known as Midwest Miniature Guy. Tom, thanks for coming and joining me on Off the Pod.
Hey, thanks for having me, Nick. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you and I, we've known each other for what, 10 years, 5, 10 years for
It's
sure, at
five or
least.
10 years,
and
something
we've
like
been
that.
acquaintances longer. Like
Yeah,
we've run in the same circles for longer than that. So
pretty much. It's been kind of weird because every once in a while, especially out of like the Renaissance Festival, like, oh, that's Captain Drake. No, that's the other Captain Drake. No, that's Nick. And that,
right. Yeah, I heard that they had another guy there for like a year or two that was going by that
yeah,
name.
yeah.
That rat bastard. Thief.
I know, it just
He's
stole
probably
your
not there
person.
anymore because too many people were like, "You're not Captain Drake." I know my friends.
Right, yeah,
I know my friends. I know what they do. They do that. They
right.
totally throw him under the bus. They used to throw
Wrong guy.
there is our friend Jack Sparrow,
Oh yeah,
Minnesota Jack Sparrow. They used to throw him under the bus all the time. Well, why can't you be more like Captain Drake?
yeah. He's
You
like,
know,
I'm not a
your
wrestler.
walk is good, but it's nowhere near as good. It's like, oh man, just throwing him under the bus, right? And they'll do it when I'm there too. They'll do it, and he
Oh
because
sure.
he and I are friends. He'd come up to me and he'd tell
Uh,
me about the interaction, and I'd be like, oh, that's freaking hilarious. Because secretly I always was like, it would be cool for me to have been a Jack Sparrow impersonator, and so we always talk
oh
about
yeah,
that. And he always thought it would be cool to like just be able to make it as his own pirate character and just do his own pirate
sure, yeah.
character. So
Yeah, we know
yes,
we know too many we know way too many people in like the Venn diagram is just a circle lately. It's just
right, it is.
like role playing games, Renaissance Festival music. Wait, we know all these it's
Right,
just
we
a
know all
ball.
of these people. We do. Yeah, it is. Now that I think about it, yeah, those. Well, and then if you just zoom it out, it's not a Venn diagram. It's just a circle called geeks, and then we're just
Oh yeah,
all in
yeah,
it.
geeks, nerds. Yeah.
Oh, welcome on in, Stephen the Shark. Thank you for the lurk. Della Undercover. Hello, hello. Thank you all for joining us today. Of course, all the alerts are on. Everything is on. Things are here, and we are going to talk about a handful of topics today. We're going to start off probably with some Star Wars, as people can see right below me here. It says Star Wars characters. We'll talk about Star Wars characters, maybe talk about some of our favorite, some of our least favorite in the cinematics. I don't know, comics, novels, video games. You cover all that stuff, don't you?
I cover a lot of that. Yeah. I go back to the original, well, I could say original trilogy, but I've been a fan of Star Wars since I was 2 years old. So my I remember vaguely remember seeing the promos for it when I was that age, and I was born in Medford, Oregon, so seeing the promos for it on like a little black and white TV, basically, and going, mom, take me to this movie. So she buys a ticket, she takes me to the movie. We're there. The last thing that I remember is Darth Vader coming through the door of the Tantive Four, right? In A New Hope. Boom, Vader walks in,
Yeah,
smoke's
that
billowing
iconic
out.
entrance.
Very iconic entrance, right? And I look at my mom and I'm so short, I'm standing on the seat to be able to see the screen, right? Because there was no stadium seating at that time. Everything was on the ground. And I look at her and I said, Mommy, I'm bored. Can we go home? And she's like, I bought these tickets. You were staying here. And that's the last thing that I remember because I probably ended up falling asleep because I was two.
Yeah.
And then I've got a photo of myself. I keep it on my phone now, of when I was about two and a half or so at a car dealership in Medford, Oregon, with Darth Vader to my left and a life-size remote control R2D2 to my right, that was out running around with the kids at this car dealership. And here I am,
Stuck in the
barely knee
middle with
high
you.
to,
Sorry.
oh yeah, it's like, and R2D2 is taller than me, right? This
Right.
is, and so yeah, I've got this photo. It's 1977. It's like July or August of 77 or something like that. So I'm not quite 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, so longtime Star Wars fan. Never got to see the rest of the original trilogy in the theaters until they released um the updates back in the 90s, where George Lucas went in and put in a bunch of more
Garbage.
scenes. And
I mean,
yeah,
stuff.
well, some say it was garbage, some enjoyed it.
Some was good. Some was, yeah.
Some was good. Some was like, do we really need the musical number in Return of the Jedi? Probably not. If you remember that, it
No, I
was.
don't. I don't
You
remember
don't?
that. No, because I like the original version. It's the way they were. I actually have
You're
had on my
okay.
wish list. I had on my wish list on Amazon like the original unedited,
Oh, the
unmodified
unedited. Yeah.
trilogy. But it's so goddamn expensive these days to even get a
I
copy. Hello,
yeah.
Della. Della says I will be lurking and going to bed soon, but I'll plan to put the stream on the TV so I can play
Until
it
you fall
until I
asleep.
fall asleep.
Well, my here I'll do. Hold on. See if I can do it. Let's see if I can pull it off. Now on Epic Realms podcast. Trying to get my NPR voice
Your
going
NPR
here
voice
so that
going.
we can put Della to sleep.
Go to sleep, Della. It is time for you to go to sleep.
It's 6:18 p.m. We're talking about Star Wars.
And I haven't even turned the timer on yet.
Right, yeah.
I was just getting a little backdrop before I hit that timer.
Yeah.
Let's hit that timer.
Yeah,
let's hit that timer. So what is your do you have this is my favorite character, or does it waffle?
For a long time, of course, growing up as a kid, it was Luke Skywalker. He's the hero of the story, right?
Right.
And then as I got older, I'm like, maybe I'm more of a Han Solo Boba Fett.
Right. Yeah.
To be honest, if we're going, the original trilogy, for if we go to the prequels, I'm definitely a Qui-Gon Jinn guy. I love Liam Neeson's character in that.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, who doesn't like a good Darth Maul? Both in which is sad because in Phantom Menace, I don't think he was utilized as much as he could be.
Yeah.
But I like Darth Maul. Obi-Wan Kenobi, both Alec Guinness and Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a yeah. Just
you can't not have him on your list.
Right. So those are kind of my top characters, probably. I mean, it's always fun to see a good bad guy, and I was really hoping, like in the sequel movies, I was really hoping that Snoke and Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren were going to be like these big bad guys, right? I'm like, oh, this is going to be cool, and it just wasn't. Unfortunately,
I hated Kylo Ren. And it wasn't that I hated Kylo Ren. I hated the casting so much because I look and I'm like, is he adopted? Is he the adopted child? Because he looks nothing like Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford. Right. Doesn't look like he like. I can't suspend my disbelief to think that he is their child.
Yeah, too tall, too skinny,
his facial structures, facial features, none of it matched. Nothing. There was not one thing about him. Like if Harrison Ford were instead played by why can't I think of his name? Snape from Harry Potter and Hans Gruber from Die Hard.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody in chat help me out here. What the hell was that actor's name? If at any rate, if he played Han Solo, then yeah, it would totally make sense.
Alan Rickman,
yeah. If Alan Rickman played Han Solo, then I could totally see Kylo Ren being the son of those two. Sure. Absolutely. Then I'd be for it. But for now, I'm like, Kylo Ren's adopted. He's got to be adopted. Yeah. That's got to be the case.
I think that, again, it's one of those things where it's like, again, an interesting character. Here's a interesting little piece of trivia, and you might not have seen this growing up. As a kid of the 80s, I watched a lot of cartoons. Alan Rickman, yep. I watched a lot of cartoons, and a lot of Saturday mornings were, from like 7 a.m. to noon. There was just nothing but cartoons on. So I would watch the Star Wars cartoons. So they had Star Wars Ewoks, they had Star Wars droids. If you go back and you watch Star Wars droids, which again now isn't canonical, which is too bad because I think some of the stories in there were pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
But there is a character in the at the end of the first season that's named Kylo Ren, and he is a space pirate. They spell it a little bit differently.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
still Ren, but he is a character in that cartoon, and he's a little short, fat space pirate.
Interesting. I would
So
have never
there's
guessed that.
there's a little bit of Star Wars trivia for you. If you go back and watch those old cartoons, you'll get a kick out of them. But
Is there anybody
um,
that you absolutely are like, I can't stand this character?
everybody puts such a bad spin on Jar Jar Binks. I think he's kind of like the main punching bag
The
of
Sith
Star
Lord?
Wars
The Sith Lord? Jar
characters.
Jar Binks the Sith Lord?
The Sith Lord, yeah, Sith Lord Jar Jar. Um,
When I heard that fan theory, I automatically like changed. I was like, okay, he's not so bad.
yeah, he's. I mean, they were trying to get some comedic relief. They
And
didn't
something for
have.
the kids. They wanted something for
They
kids.
wanted something for the kids. They didn't have C3PO or really R2D2 yet. I mean, R2 was in the Phantom Menace, but like he wasn't him and C3PO. Like Lucas, main thing I remember reading this was that he wanted Star Wars to be told from the viewpoint of those two droids.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's really interesting. That would have you can see parts of that, but you didn't see a whole lot of it in the prequels. It was definitely, Annie and Padme and Obi-Wan and kind of like those three main characters throughout the prequel trilogies. Um I'm not a Star Wars apologist by any means because I know there's plot holes in all the movies
Oh
and
yeah.
there's
Yeah. Yeah.
things that are, bad in all the media for them. But when a new when a new Star Wars show or movie comes out, I always go, well, let's hope for something really good. Let's hope for something good.
Yeah.
I don't even care. I don't want really good. I don't want great. I want something. I want there to be a good story.
Yeah.
And so I was really hopeful for Finn to be a great character.
Yeah. Right.
And you see him in The Force Awakens, I'm like, wow, an ex stormtrooper who is wielding Luke's lightsaber. Is he force sensitive? And I think the writers dropped the ball there,
I
and they
do
could
too.
have made him um, a wonderful Jedi. I think that would have been a very interesting story arc. I wanted Rey to be a nobody. I didn't want her to be a Palpatine. I didn't want her to be a Skywalker. I didn't want her to be a Kenobi. I wanted her to be absolutely nobody. And of course, JJ had to throw that in twice. Oh, she's a Palpatine. Oh, she changed her name to Skywalker. Meh, I'm out. It was like that's too bad. And I don't hate Daisy Ridley, and I don't hate the woman that played Rose. I thought that was a very interesting character too. That again, the writers didn't do anything with it. So I guess character wise, I don't hate any of the characters. I dislike what the writers did with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my main issue with Star Wars.
Yeah. I think there's
Um,
since the original trilogy, I think every trilogy, I guess, every little separate series has had issues, right? So there's always going to be issues. There's always going to
yeah, I
be
mean,
an issue of some sort coming up.
everybody's complaining about Mandalorian season 3,
Oh, I haven't seen season
right?
3 yet.
Haven't seen season 3 yet. It's good. I don't would I say that it progresses the storyline along? It progresses one character storyline along. I don't know about some of the other ones, and I'm not going to ruin it for you. Go
Yeah,
watch it. But
it's on the
um
list.
yeah,
We're just
but
finishing up with actually I think we're all caught up with Marvel now, so
okay. We're still watching Echo. We just got into watching Echo.
Oh yeah, we haven't watched Echo yet.
Yeah. We're 2 episodes into that. I'm like, oh, this is pretty good.
Well, I think there was a
Um,
movie that a movie that just came out too. The Marvels. We
the
haven't seen that one
Marvels.
either. Got to watch that one too. So
A lot of like kind of fanboys, whatever, complained about it. I saw nothing wrong with it. I know that we're getting kind of off topic from Star Wars, but just Disney in general and their franchises that they have. The Marvels as a good Marvel movie, it was okay. It was fun. Go in with,
yeah, I'm looking
this
forward
movie
to it. I liked all
this
the.
movie is going to be fun.
I liked I liked the Captain Marvel movie. I liked Miss Marvel. So
Yeah.
I liked all of those characters. I liked the shows.
Yep.
And as
Put all
much as
three
all
together.
the people the haters are out there like hating on it, it's like and they're like, oh, this movie flopped, and then you look, it's like, did it though? It didn't.
No, it
It
didn't.
didn't flop.
No, it
It
didn't.
did really well.
Yeah. Well, and just like, yeah, anyway, to get back on the topic, I think that so I watched the Ahsoka series and enjoyed it, like the way that Dave Filoni is bringing his characters from Rebels into live action. I think
Yeah,
that's very cool. And to get away from the Star Wars universe and put it into another universe where the planet Peridia is at, and um bring us a new planet, bring us some new characters, bring us some new bad guys. I think Filoni, being the guy who basically learned at the feet of George Lucas all of the Star Wars lore, especially when they were writing the Clone Wars, is the him and Jon Favreau are the guys to kind of should be leading Lucasfilm. And it's great to see that Filoni actually became more of a creative director, or
yeah,
whatever he is now, for Lucasfilm. Not just, everybody's like complaining about Kathleen Kennedy. I think there's too many chefs in the kitchen.
yeah, yeah. I agree.
And it needs to boil down to one lead creative person that says, "Here's George's vision of where he wanted to go. You guys kind of went off and did your own little thing, and I'm going to bring it back. And yeah, I'm going to have to amalgamate. I'm going to have to shove your story, into mine,
Yeah,
but I'm going to go and over to this whole new universe with all new planets, and that's where I'm going to put a couple of my characters, while a few others are still dinking around the Star Wars universe. Oh,
yeah.
and by the way, I'm bringing Thrawn back.
There we go.
Um,
Welcome back,
there
Stephen.
was a
Welcome back.
Hey, Steve. Um, for me, bringing Thrawn back was huge because one of the first book series that my stepdad ever bought me, knowing that I was a huge Star Wars fan, him being a Star Trek fan, was the Timothy Zahn trilogy that was written back in the 90s.
Yeah,
You know, Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising. And I can't remember the third one, but those were um, those were incremental in Star Wars lore for me and for a lot of people my age that were Star Wars fans. Were like, oh, actual canonical Star Wars books
right,
that Lucas is like giving his blessing to.
right.
We're in. Let's go. We've been waiting for this since Return of the Jedi came out,
Yeah, we want more
and
stories.
so yeah, and give us good ones. And I always thought that if anybody was going to do a prequel trilogy, well, you already have it written. Just do Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire trilogy,
Right,
the first Thrawn trilogy.
right.
And I think, uh, yeah, Roland Halo says, "I'm sad they didn't make those books into movies. They should have."
They should
And
have.
I have a feeling that that's what Dave Filoni is trying to do, is to rewrite to an extent the Heir to the Empire trilogy, but just in his own way.
Yeah.
Like he's
Yeah.
giving a nod to Timothy Zahn, like this is a great villain. He's not a force adept. He's not, but he's smart. He's a tactician.
Right.
He learns people's tactics and things like that through art, which I find very interesting. I love the way that Zahn wrote that. Being an artist, I'm like, well, holy cow!
Yeah.
If they
Yeah.
could figure out something about me through my art, that would be very interesting to me because I want to know that. But to make him a villain, how he can figure out their culture and their their tactics and things like that through their creative processes, whether it be through sculpture, painting, or drawing, or all of them, music, whatever. Um, I was like, that's a really intellectual way of creating a cool villain
Yeah.
because you can't just stop him by force choking him because he's already figured out, oh, if you're a Jedi, I've got these crazy lizard things that block the force.
Right.
Oh, okay. I've trained these little other furry guys called Noghray to be my assassins. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And they had the Noghray in Rebels, and I'm like, great, bring him into Ahsoka now. Where did they all go? It wasn't just the one, right? He had a whole planet of them.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it'll be interesting to
um,
see where he goes on that little on that journey as far as comparing it to those books. I when I saw the
yeah,
Mandalorian, the bad dude from the Mandalorian, I when I saw him, all I could think about is this is. I always felt that that was kind of a little like he was very cerebral, like Thrawn,
yeah,
and so I got that Thrawn feel. I'm like, well, since they're never going to get Thrawn in canon, at least they got this. This
right,
this guy's pretty cool. And then of course now
yep,
they've got Thrawn, and it's like okay, well there we go, there we
yep.
go. What
Well,
did
and
you think
they
of
had Thrawn and
when the George Lucas
go ahead.
came out with his prequels? When he came out and the first thing he said is none of the books, none of the comic books, none of that matters because I didn't write it. When he came out and announced that right before the first
When you come out,
episode one came out.
when he came out and said that, I mean, at that time, Disney hadn't acquired them, and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
a
that was
lot of
just
us
him.
still thought it was just him, and it was like, yeah, fair, you didn't write it, but you gave permission for these writers to do so,
Right.
and so are we going to are we as readers of this going to use it as canon? I mean, some of us were, at the time were role players, we're
Right.
still role
Exactly.
players. And we're like, especially, if we were playing a Star Wars role playing game, oh, we've got all these new books coming out that we can now say, oh, it takes place in between Truce at Bakura and the Heir to the Empire.
Right.
So
Well,
we've got
heck,
like
some of
that
them
little
West End Games came out with RPG books based on the books.
yep,
They
yep,
statted some
yeah,
of the
exactly.
characters.
Yep. Which is great. I have some of those because I was running a Star Wars campaign for a while. And so I wanted the new ships and the new weapons and the new races and species or whatever you want to call them. And I went out and got some of those source books. What it didn't make me mad that George said that because I'm like, well, yeah, you're the creator, so whatever you create after that is going to be canon, whether it be a TV show or a movie. Think of this: the two Ewok films that came out, Caravan of Courage and the Battle for Endor, those are canon because George Lucas made them. Wrap your head around that.
Yeah. 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 Did he also do
So
the Christmas special?
he
I don't think somebody else did this Christmas special. I think he did the Christmas special,
he did the Christmas special,
which is
but he was
canon.
which is canon. But also like he went out of his way to at least rumor has it that he went out of his way to try and find as many of the copies of that as possible and destroy them because he hated it so much. He's like, I didn't want it. This is just bad.
Yeah.
Um,
I was a little insulted
but
when he came out and said, all of this stuff that you care about that I put my seal approval on, I'm taking my seal of approval back. Is basically how I felt he was saying that. He was basically like, yeah, you invested all this in there, but I don't give a rat's ass. I'm going to do something completely else. That's how I felt, and
Yeah,
that put a sour taste in my mouth for the prequels before they even started.
yeah.
And of course, the first time I got the flu when I went and saw episode 1, and
Oh, so it's
everybody
just
drugged me to see. We had opening night tickets, and I went to see it while I
sure.
had the flu, sitting in the front
Oh,
row, coughing and hacking.
yeah.
So yeah,
Uh, I enjoyed it. I don't know. When I go back and I watch the prequels, I enjoy them for what they are. And for me, Star Wars has always been about first and foremost entertain me because they're movies.
right,
These aren't something that we need to think deep, super deeply about. It's space opera. It's space cowboys and space samurai and space wizards,
right.
fighting space Nazis for the most part. That's
Mm-hmm.
what it is,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so I
And
don't
it even has Indiana Jones, so there we go.
right, right. And a big furry walking carpet. It's great.
Yeah,
We don't even know what this guy says half the time. Han's translating for us. But so I go into it with just pure entertainment. Then, and it's when uh when episode 7 came out, The Force Awakens, one of the coolest shots, at least in the promos for it, was this cool shot of 3 TIE fighters with the sunset in the background. And I'm like, ooh, that kind of gives me like Rogue Squadron, um, Apocalypse Now kind of feel. Here are these 3 fighters coming in over this desert with the sunset in the background. Like this, I'm hoping this is going to be good. I hope it's not just a visual. You know,
the timer is up.
Thumbs up. All right, but anyway, that's uh, Star Wars for me is just entertainment. It's fun. It's space opera. Enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah. Lyric says I grew up on those Ewok movies.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I think a lot of us that are in our late 30s, early 40s.
Thank you for the
um,
sub, Emmy Kiko, 21 months.
nice. Um, I think a lot of us that are in our late 30s to early 50s grew up on those Ewok movies and anything kind of Star Wars related. Like if you go back and read like the old Marvel comic strips, uh, they had absolutely nothing to do with the movies whatsoever.
No.
But George Lucas put his stamp of approval on that too. So
Well,
what
back then
irritated me?
when you're just struggling to get by, anybody who shoves money in your face, you're like, yeah,
Oh yeah,
go ahead, take it.
sure,
Yeah,
go for it.
nope, yep, it's good, good, good.
Um,
Rolana
I
Halo
think
says, I think George Lucas is someone who is a great world builder, but not necessarily a great writer.
yes, he's a great world builder, coming up with and a great idea person. So while A New Hope was a fun movie, when he brought Lawrence Kasdan in for Empire Strikes Back, you brought a great writer in,
Yeah.
and that he's the one that expanded Star Wars with George's ideas. And to have it go a little darker, like, hey, the Empire Strikes Back. And this isn't going to be, the heroes aren't going to win at the end of this movie. There's going to be maybe one of them dies, maybe, somebody gets seriously hurt. Which, to be honest, Harrison Ford didn't want to come back for Return of the Jedi. He wanted Han Solo to die or just be trapped in that carbonite and sent off to Jabba.
Right.
And that's why Lando, when he's flying off in the Millennium Falcon with Chewie, was wearing Han Solo's shirt and vest.
Yeah, because he wasn't supposed to come back.
He wasn't supposed to come back. Lando was supposed to take over. How interesting would have that been for Return of the Jedi to have Lando in the Han Solo?
It wouldn't have been the same.
It wouldn't have.
No.
But hey, they drove up to Harrison Ford's house with a dump truck full of money and said, "We're bringing Han Solo back." And he said, "Well, okay, sure."
Right.
Right.
And then Disney did the same thing.
Right. But the thing that irritated me about it wasn't George Lucas saying that; it was Disney after they acquired Lucasfilm and Star Wars, and they said, okay, now everything that has been written is now obsolete. We're writing our own books, we're doing our own canon, we're doing our own thing. It was like, but you've got 25, 30 years of stories there that you could delve into, and you're
Right.
not going to do it.
Yeah, you've got an entire galaxy worth of stories to tell.
Yeah. But I mean, but please don't do Dark Saber because that book sucked. But there's don't read Children of the Jedi either. That was a bad one. You had like books like I Jedi or the Michael Stackpole books for Rogue Squadron were fantastic because he was writing it from like a naval pilot background.
Yeah.
That was really cool. So
I want to give a quick shout out. We were talking about scenes that sold uh, um, the new Disney trilogy,
yeah,
and for me, like, do I think that they did Luke Skywalker a little dirty? Maybe, but the way he went out was badass.
that was awesome.
And not knowing, like, first, like, I look back when I watched the first time, and I was like, oh, okay, that's cool, badass. And then afterwards, when I watched it a second time, I was like, how did I not know? Like, he looks completely different. Like, he looks younger. He looks,
Yep,
he looks like the Jedi we imagined. How did
right.
we not know
We did, yep,
that he wasn't actually physically there?
yeah.
Like, how did we not
Don't
see that?
don't worry. He just shaved down a little bit and cut his hair, and
Yeah, got a little
came in
dye job in there, and
eye
yeah.
job before he showed up, and right.
But
But
yeah, it
the
was that scene. I was just sitting there, and he's just like, I'm like,
oh, I love
yeah,
that scene.
yeah,
I'm like, oh, here's Luke. Here's Luke as the Jedi Master who has defeated the Emperor. Well, his dad did. Defeated Darth Vader, brought him back to the light side for the most part. Luke was the chosen one, to be honest. And then he goes and begins this new Jedi Academy.
yeah. Again,
Okay,
not following the books at all, because
right. So
but yeah,
for him to show up, and then like there's a book out there that Disney did put out called the Legends of Luke Skywalker, I think, but it deals with all these different stories of Luke after the Return of the Jedi, going on these different adventures to track down more Jedi lore, fighting a bunch of stormtroopers, like by himself,
yeah,
because he's the Jedi man. He's it,
yeah,
right? And
yeah. That would have been it.
I
Would have
don't
been cool
know.
to see
That
more of him as
that
like
was
this, you know, to see him more a little bit more than what he was,
right.
and in
And
fact, spoiler, I didn't watch the
it, and I think
third.
that's okay. I think that's okay. There are not a lot of fans of The Last Jedi out there. In fact, there's a lot of people out there that absolutely cannot stand that movie. I liked it. I think that out of that sequel trilogy, that's my favorite. And number one, it's because of his interactions with Rey and the way that he shows up at the end. That he's not even there. He's that powerful of a force user that he's going to go out there and dink around with the New Order and his nephew, and then his nephew finally realizes he's not even here. Him shakes this off and goes, "See you around, kid." By the way, that "see you around, kid," that's a Han Solo line.
It is, yeah,
Got that from his uncle, from his best friend. "See you
yeah,
around, kid."
yeah,
I'm like, if Luke, okay, and then he dies. He goes, "You know what? I'm out. I've done my bit. Screw you guys. I'm out because I've used all my force power. I'm old and I'm going to become one with the force." What I wanted to see in the third movie, here's a little spoiler if you don't, like he makes an appearance in the third movie, not in the way that I wanted him to, because what I wanted him to do, what I wanted the writers to go, because the director of that second movie did such a great setup job for the third movie, was those writers should have had Luke Skywalker just bugging the crap out of Kylo Ren as a Force ghost.
Yeah.
Hey kid, hey, you're going the wrong way. Hey, you're doing the wrong thing. What do you think you're doing? Yeah, I wasn't there for you when you were younger, but
I'm here now. Yeah.
I'm here now. And here's, and that's the way that Ben Solo, Kylo Ren, gets redemption. It's not through helping his whatever little dyad love interest, whatever, with Rey, but it's through his uncle actually loving him back to the light side of the
Right.
Force. I think that would have been a great way to redeem him.
Except for, like I said, we all know he's adopted. So.
Right, yeah.
Lyric says it's never good to piss on the fan base for whom the stories were a formative part of their youth. Yeah,
Oh
exactly.
yeah. I mean,
Exactly.
but what are we gonna do? I mean, it's their company, it's their stories to tell now. I'm just happy that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are taking their part of it and running with it and actually telling some really good stories.
Yeah. Yeah. Cross our fingers for more good stories.
Yep.
Our next topic is musical influences. And what better way to start the topic of musical influences than by asking you if you think that the score and the music from the Star Wars films was influential on you as a human being.
Oh, yeah. Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Battlestar Galactica, Voltron. I mean, any kind of
Superman.
Superman. I mean, John Williams was just he's a musical genius. But
He
I mean,
is.
John Williams, Hans Zimmer, Michael,
Yeah.
Howard Shore. You put those three in a room and go write something. And I
Man,
mean,
getting
yeah,
those three to collaborate on something would be insane.
right.
Or they'd all just kill each other. One of the two.
Oh yeah, the egos are so so huge now. But no, I think that if you put those three together and said, hey, write a score, pick your favorite movie or pick a movie that you didn't do and write a score to that and see what they would come up with.
Yeah.
I think would be very interesting. But those three guys are probably my top three composers of um movie music. You could throw Danny Elfman in there too
Yeah,
because
Danny Elfman's great.
he's done quite a few movies. He sang in a bunch of stuff. I mean, he was a founding member of Oingo Boingo, which I found out like 20 years ago. I'm like, really? I didn't know.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, a founding member of Oingo Boingo. He played keyboards and guitar, I believe, and sang. So get go look up some Danny Elfman music. It's really interesting.
Didn't he? Maybe I'm wrong. I could have swore I was just like I'm googling it. I'm like I'm pretty sure didn't Danny Elfman do some WWE entrance themes as well? But that must be somebody else.
That I don't know. I'm not a wrestling fan or
Hey,
not a much of a
look, we
wrestling
found
fan.
something. We found something not in common. We
Not in
finally
common.
found something that we don't.
How about this? I'm an old school wrestling fan. I go back to Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant and Roddy Piper and those guys. The Sheik,
Fair enough.
Superfly, Jimmy Snuka. Those are my wrestling
Back when
heroes.
the entrance theme musics were kind of just getting started.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
I got you.
So
Many people don't know that you also are in a band and that
I
you
am.
play music. Tell people what you play music with and like what the thematic feel of the band is. What kind of music you
Uh,
guys play and kind of what inspires the music.
Inspires. I play drums and percussion and do background vocals for a local Irish pub punk Celtic punk rock band called the Serfs. And that's SERFS, like medieval peasantry. And we are heavily influenced by first the Tim Loys, which is another local three-piece band that they were influenced by because so funny story. Before I even moved over here, I moved over to Minneapolis in 1999, and around that same time, um, our friend Peter and Eric were down at the old Kieran's pub, and they were watching the Tim Malloys. They'd had a few, and we're walking out after the show, And Peter says, hey, we can effing do that. And him not being a singer or a guitar player, Eric playing guitar, and Peter says, or I know another guitar player, and that's where they grab Shashir Chang and being their lead guitar player. So it was basically just those three for a while,
Yeah.
and then at one point in time, and this is really funny because I would show up every once in a while to play some percussion at like a backyard barbecue, bonfire kind of a thing. And there were like 15 people all claiming to be part of the Surfs, all of them playing guitar, one bass player, and a couple of us playing percussion. And it then pared down to, and I got busy. I ended up having a kid. Ended up having a kid.
Playing some Irish rock. Thank you, Lyric Lost.
Really,
A little longer one.
yeah, I'm all right with that.
I like that one.
But that's one of the bands that they were influenced by is Dropkick Murphys, Flogging Molly, the Pogues, the Waterboys, Stiff Little Fingers, stuff like that. The Replacements. Kind of think of like your favorite. Take your favorite band of the like the '80s new wave punk stuff, and they had that one super popular hit. We're the B-side. Right? This is a great song, but we're gonna play this one because we really like this one. And so yeah, we're kind of play the B-side band sort of. I never grew up playing Irish punk. So in 2008, their current drummer, who was a good friend of ours and part of our role playing group on Thursday nights, was headed over to our house, and we're waiting for him. We're like, where's Mark? And he stops at a gas station to get drinks and munchies. Quick, kind of, I guess, trigger warning. There's some death involved here. He closes the door to his car and falls over. Ambulance shows up. We find out the next day that he had a pulmonary embolism, and he died that night.
Oh man.
So not only did the Surfs lose their drummer, but we also lost a really good friend and role player. So after about a month or so, and we had gone to his family's house because that's where he was living at the time. We had to help them clean out his bedroom, and people were, we were like, well, they're like, you guys have to take some of this stuff because you're his friends, and we want this to keep going. And so we were like, it's really weird to like divvy up your friends' CDs and miniatures and role playing stuff and Renfest gear and stuff like that. It was just like, God, I hope I never have to do this again for like a really long freaking time, right? I want you guys to be like 85 or 90 before I have to try and do this again. And hopefully you're living in a much smaller place. But so after that, the band knew that I played drums. So they came to me and they said, hey, we know that you play drums. Would you be interested in joining the Surfs? I said, well, let me ask my wife. Because at the time, Lynn was 8. That's my daughter. And I didn't want to take any time away from family stuff to go do band stuff again, because I hadn't done that in like 8 or 9 years.
Yeah.
And so I asked Kim, my wife, and she says, well, I don't think Mark wouldn't want you to do that. Go do it. So I show up to band practice thinking, well, they're kind of, at the time, they were a little bit more, they were Irish, but they were a little bit more like acoustic Irish with like an electric guitar. But like Mark would only play bongos or a djembe or a conga or just a snare drum, stuff like that. So a little bit more Americana kind of a feel.
Yeah.
And so we were trying some of that, and then John, our bass player, he says
Make no
we were
mistake about that man on the bottle of Captain Morgan.
nice.
That
Um,
man was a legend.
Not a legend. Not a legend.
Legend, yeah.
It's just a
Uh,
drawing. He's just a drawing.
he John
Welcome
says
in,
to me,
Toasty Toesies.
"Boy, it'd be really great if we had a bass drum for this song," and it was for Drunken Lullabies, Flock Molly's Drunken Lullabies. So you get that dun 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 dun, at the
Yeah.
beginning of the song, right? And then bum, ba, da, 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 So I said, well, next practice, how about I bring my little practice kit in and see how it goes? And I did that, and it just took off. We're like, oh, this is going to be a completely different version of the Surfs, so we'll be able to play other stuff. I brought my drum kit in rather than just
Just what he had done.
what he had. So we started playing more Flogging Molly. We started playing a couple more Dropkick Murphys tunes, some more Pogue stuff, and here I am. What, 16 years almost later? Yeah, 16 years as of January. Still playing with them.
Yeah.
Put out an album, which I drug them kicking and screaming into somebody's home basement studio
To
to
record.
do that, and we have fun. I St. Patrick's Day is kind of our Super Bowl. We tend to have like 3 or 4 gigs that weekend, and
Yeah. You got
some
that
some
planned
of them
already?
are.
Got that scheduled?
Oh yeah, yeah. Actually, March 16th, we're going to be at CHS Field
Wow.
playing right after the St. Patrick's Day parade, from 1:45 to 3. And we're right after the Irish Dancers and some U2 cover band that's going to be down there. So yeah, we're excited
Set
about
up a
doing that.
camera, stream it.
Boy, yeah, that'd be kind of cool. Should do that. Um, and then March
Just your phone.
17th,
Just plug in the phone, put it on a
plug it in.
stand, hit stream.
Yeah, go. I've got the ring light right here. It's a big enough tripod. I could probably do that.
There you go.
Um, but March 17th from 8 to close, we're going to be at the Acadia Cafe right there on Riverside, and I'm blanking on the name of the street. Anyways, Acadia Cafe. You can find it. Just Google that, and we're going to be there from 8 to close. I think it's like a $10 cover charge to get in, but fun little place. It's one of those places where you get like 20 or 30 people in there, and it's packed.
Yeah.
So we just want to pack the place. I know it's a Sunday, but I'm hoping a lot of people come down and want to hear some fast Irish
What got
stuff.
you into drumming? Is there like a specific artist that was like, you're like, oh, I want to drum like that guy?
Um, Gosh, when I first started getting into playing, it was, I started in 7th grade, and it was just snare drum stuff because marching band. It was
Gotcha.
pep band stuff like that, right, in school. And then the first drum part that I heard, and this is going to age me horribly, and this is my guilty pleasure song, but it was Great White's "Once Bitten, Twice Shy."
Mm-hmm.
And like through the whole first part of the song, it's literally just like a bass drum, right? I'm like, well, this is kind of boring, but the guitar part is pretty cool. And then the drummer pops in with this just killer freaking drum fill, and I'm like, oh, I want to do that. And it wasn't even like, it wasn't Phil Collins, "In the Air Tonight,"
Yeah.
right, right, which was super cool. That's like iconic drum part. But
Yeah.
Buddy Desbro, he was the drummer for Great White, and the part that he played in that song at this super cool breakdown made me go, that's what I want to do.
That's
And
awesome.
then I started getting into, well, and I listened to a ton of different music. I think the only music that I really don't listen to is like gangster rap.
Yeah.
But and that's not saying anybody
Unless
doesn't have to,
I'm
don't enjoy
playing
it.
Grand Theft Auto, then
Yeah,
I'll
well,
listen
what are you gonna do?
to
That's on every station.
it.
But I started getting into, especially with the guy that I was finally joined a band with. He started introducing me to more music. So instead of me just listening to, Great White or Guns N' Roses or Whitesnake or, Metallica, Megadeth, all these metal bands, it was like, oh, hey, have you listened to Pink Floyd? Oh, have you listened to Supertramp? Hey, have you listened to Eric Clapton? Oh, here's um what's his name? Peter Gabriel,
Oh yeah,
stuff like that,
Peter
right? And I'm
Gabriel's.
like, oh, there's much more. So my musical tastes and influences opened up a ton. Simon and Garfunkel.
Yes.
Um, it was Paul Simon's 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover is when I first heard Steve Gadd, who's a phenomenal uh, drummer and has played on a ton of stuff. If you go back and you listen to Steely Dan's Aja,
Hmm.
just that song, that's Steve Gadd.
Oh really?
Yeah, and just killer stuff. And he's still playing. Dude's like 80 something years old. He's out there just kicking my butt. Um, but that's those are kind of my musical influences. The band that I played with out in Seattle, growing up out there, we were an amalgamation of music because our guitar player was influenced by Pink Floyd, Supertramp, David Bowie, and Eric Clapton. So he was writing that kind of those parts. He was our singer songwriter, guitar player. Then there was me. I was getting more into that stuff, but also leaning more into like the prog rock stuff. So like Yes and Rush and Dream Theater and Fate's Warning and stuff like that, which was all these different odd time signatures and whatever. Our bass player was still in the heavy metal phase, so he was, rocking with the Metallica and Megadeth and Motorhead and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But our keyboard player, the one that finally solidified us as a band, she was older than our guitar player. She grew up with like the 50s and 60s bubblegum pop type stuff. So she would take the keyboard parts that our singer songwriter, because he also played piano, she would take those parts and go, well, what about this? And start adding in these different sound effects and synth things on the keyboards. And he'd be like, that's really cool, keep that. Or we want to put some strings in there too. So she'd add strings into this. And it was just this crazy mix of like Pink Floyd meets Rush with like these funk metal bass lines. I don't know. It was weird.
Somebody says Carter Buford.
Carter Buford, yes, from
Carter
the Dave
Buford.
Matthews
The Dave Matthews Band. Yeah.
Dave Matthews Band. Great drummer. Again, like I said, I listened to a ton of stuff. Vinnie Colaiuta played for Sting on the 10 Summoner's Tales album.
Great album.
Phenomenal work.
I think that was
you,
one of the first albums I bought with my own money. Either
yeah,
that or it was Weird Al Yankovic, one of the two. But
well, I definitely bought that one. In fact, I went and found that one on CD a few years ago, and I was like, oh, it's Weird Al. Grab that one.
Right.
It's funny. One of the first albums that I actually purchased on my own, because I grew up in a little dinky town in Washington State called Pomeroy, Washington. It's like, if you look at go this way. If you look at the corner of Washington, southeastern Washington State, where it hits Idaho and Oregon, we are right here.
Okay.
So there was hardly any radio stations that we could really pick up. And the ones that we could pick up were either, hey, it's the Farm Report, right? Or it was the Christian stations, which I didn't have a problem with. I grew up with my aunts and my grandmother who were, born again Pentecostal preachers, like ordained from Tennessee folks. And so there wasn't a whole lot of music going on, except for the fact that my great aunt Dorothy, here's a lot of where my musical influences came from too, was from her, because during the Depression, she's a guitar player, a singer, and she also played organ and piano. Living in Leavenworth, Washington, which is like central Washington, right on the base of the Cascade Mountains, she would take her little guitar and go down and play at the big band stages for like $5 a night. during the weekends. This is during the Depression, so $5 was a big deal.
Yeah.
She would take that $5 and go, $5 or $10, whatever she made for that weekend, and go buy food for the family for the rest of the week. So when she found out that I was getting into drums, she's like, "Oh, I still have some of my old musician buddies. Let me bring them over to the house." So we had guitar players, fiddle players, banjo players,
Wow.
her on guitar, or the big Wurlitzer organ with the big bass pedals. It was super cool. So we had this music going on there. My mom being the other influence of was the quintessential biker hippie chick that grew up to listening not only to the Beatles and the Monkees, but also to bands like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Jimi Hendrix, Iron Butterfly. So again, when I started playing drums, she's like, "There are 2 drum solos you have to learn. That's Inagata Vita, the drum solo from that song,
Mm-hmm.
Caravan." And I'd gotten Inagata Vita. That one was actually pretty easy, but I still haven't learned Caravan, so I guess I'm not a drummer yet. But so yeah, that was those are my musical influences. And then Theo, the guitar player for the Jordan River Project, who I played with for years out in Seattle, recorded 2 albums with out there. And then I moved out here and didn't play for a while. I would go and play for like a couple different little churches on Sunday mornings or whatever, which is what I grew up doing. Nice. But yeah, so when these guys asked me to start playing with them for the Surfs, I had no idea that there was a genre of Irish punk at all. So when I brought the kid in, I almost started doing like polka beats, pa 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 pa, right? They're like, no, faster and think punk. And I'm like Green Day. They're like, no, punk. I'm like, oh, okay, not pop punk. Go back to the 80s, listen to the Sex Pistols, and go listen to the Pogues and go. I'm like, okay. So I started doing that. I started going to YouTube and whatever and just typing in, the Pogues, typing in Dropkick Murphys, Flogging Molly, the Water Boys, any of these, the Tossers, all these other Irish bands that were doing some of the similar stuff that we wanted to do. And now they're like, and when I started playing with them too, they were like, "That was great, but can you play a little faster?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm a prog metal, metal guy. I don't play that fast, but I, playing Pink Floyd stuff too. So it was always like, think comfortably numb,
Yeah.
Kind of a thing." And they're like, "Nope, you got to speed it up. You got to get your endurance up." So I would sit down here in my basement at my kit, headphones on, and just, okay, this is how fast they're going, and start, clicking that metronome off, like boom, this is actually faster. So
yeah,
that's about how fast some of these bands are playing, if not faster. And I was like, okay, so now we get up on stage or whatever, and actually coming up this Friday, we're going to be at the Eagles Club, number 34, down in Minneapolis, and let's see how fast we can play, guys. Kind of a thing. Keep up. You asked me to get faster. Well, I've gotten faster, so here we go.
So you're gonna bog down in the valley right there and see how fast you can.
Yeah. One of my first albums I actually bought on my own was Ray Stevens. If you know who he is,
he's like a pseudo comedian, wasn't he?
Yep. Well, again, that was one of the radio stations that I could pick up there in Pomeroy. Every once in a while, I could pick up the Dr. Demento show, so I could hear Weird Al. I could hear "Dead Puppies Aren't Much Fun." It was just weird, silly songs, right?
Right.
Fish heads,
roly poly fish heads. Yep. If you guys don't know roly poly fish heads, eat them up young.
You're okay. You don't. You don't have childhood trauma. But so it was these weird, crazy songs, and I think one of the first ones that I heard from Ray Stevens was like "The Streak," or the Mississippi Squirrel Revival and Guitar Zan. It was all these really crazy, weird songs. but every once in a while in his on his albums he would put in a couple of really serious ones. So if you listen to Misty, go and find Ray Stevens' song Misty, and it is one of the most beautiful played, beautifully sung songs out there. In fact, I think he won a Grammy for
Oh
that
wow.
song. It's amazing. It's just it's a beautiful song. He's the one that wrote everything or everyone is beautiful, but in their own way. He wrote that one, and him and one of his writing partners.
Nice.
So yeah, so those are my musical influences. Going back to drumming, it was Neil Peart, it was Mike Portnoy, it was Steve Gadd, it was Audie Desbro. It was I got to see we went and saw Trans-Siberian Orchestra back in the end of December, and Blas Elias, the drummer for Slaughter, was playing for them. I'm like, oh, I get to see Blas. This is cool. I grew up listening to Slaughter and whatever, and come to find out they're actually going to be they're going to be at some little place here in Minnesota with their opening act is the Liliac Band. I don't know if you've heard of these kids, but they're a whole family of musicians that started off on like it was either America's Got Talent or the Next Rising Star or something like that. But they're an entire family of musicians, and now they've gotten bigger, and they're opening up for Slaughter and Firehouse or something like that. Anyway, in some little dinky town here in Minnesota, coming up in like May or something like that.
Wow. Lyrics Law says, in the morning, laughing happy fish heads. In the evening, rolling in your soup.
Yeah, rolling in your soup.
Hairline Fracture says, my best friend loves Dr. Demento.
Well, I mean, who doesn't? Dr. Demento, I mean, he broke Weird Al Yankovic for
right. And if you haven't watched the movie, that's how he dated Madonna.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Great movie, by the way. Great movie. If you think it's serious, you're wrong.
Yeah.
But that's the point.
My favorite Weird Al movie though was UHF.
UHF, yeah, that's old school right there.
UHF.
Yeah.
Toshi said he did lights for Trans-Siberian. That's cool.
That's awesome. Did you weld the lighting? Like do the welding for so Toasty Toesies does like welding and stuff. So I'm assuming you like welded the lights, or do you mean like you actually hung them up and set them up and all that kind of stuff? Because they're two completely different things.
Either way, super cool.
It is super cool. It is super cool. I've always wanted to see Trans-Siberian Orchestra live, and everybody's like, "Oh, that's really cool." How often do they come to where you're at? I'm like, once a year. Every Christmas they come. They can choose where to play their Christmas music, and they always play it here every year for as long as I can remember. So,
well, it's kind of interesting following some of the members of that band is that there is a West Coast Trans-Siberian Orchestra and there's an East Coast Trans-Siberian Orchestra because they can't get to every single stop that they want to play at. So the West Coast takes from Minneapolis west, and the East Coast takes from like New York to Wisconsin.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of ruins it for me now a little bit more, knowing that there's two of them. I thought we were special.
Yeah. So we get the West
Coast. Now we're one
Coast.
choice for two bands.
Yeah. It'd be super cool to see the East Coast band because most of those guys were in the band Sabotage, which is where Trans-Siberian Orchestra kind of morphed into, or Sabotage morphed into Trans-Siberian Orchestra from Paul O'Neill and a couple of the guitar players and one of the singers, I think, from Sabotage, and the bass player kind of morphed into Trans-Siberian Orchestra because Sabotage, I guess, they were kind of falling apart. One of the guys had passed, and they wanted to start doing other stuff. And so Paul O'Neill kind of gathered them all together and started writing Christmas Eve and Other Stories, which was their first album.
Which is iconic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hear Christmas Eve, Sarajevo, you're like, oh, that's Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Well, it was originally called Dead Winter Dead when Sabotage did it back in like the late 80s.
Lady Faye went to see the show this year. It was amazing.
It was absolutely amazing.
One of these years I'll get to go.
It's normally towards the end of December.
Yeah,
and you should
it's
go.
always when I'm out of town for Christmas.
Oh, sure.
Every year.
Every year.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. quick little 10, 15-minute break. If you haven't yet, go and follow Midwest Mini Guy. We're going to be coming back. We're going to be talking about minis. Of course,
Yes.
like we can't have you on the show if we're not talking about miniature painting. If you have any nearby, we'll maybe show what you're working on or whatever as well.
I have a few around me.
A couple, just a few.
I have a couple. Yeah.
So we'll talk about mini painting. Maybe you can give some pointers, tips, talk about some different stuff. It's open season, guys. If you guys got questions about miniature painting, we're gonna talk about it after the break. So come on back, talk with us.
Yes, chat. Love to answer your questions.
So there we go. And there's the link. Go ahead and give him a follow. I like to call you. I tell them. There's a clip too. Look at that amazing starting soon screen.
Yeah.
Some really cool guy must have put that together for you.
Yeah. It's a great starting. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Look at that amazing mini. Who did you pay to paint that one for you? I'm just kidding.
Oh.
I'm just
And
kidding.
I'm out.
So go and give him a follow, guys. We'll be right back in just a few talking about minis. We'll see you in a bit.
See you in a bit.
All right, we are back to Off the Pod. It's not a podcast, sort of podcast, but it's sort of a podcast, right? Sort of a podcast. I'm joined by the one and only Tom, the Midwest Miniature Guy. Is it okay? So I always say mini. I don't say the full miniature. Is it supposed to be miniature?
Yes, yeah, Midwest Miniature Guy. It's the full on, because I am the only one out there. I found out. I did a Google search, and I just typed in Midwest Miniature Guy, and to see if there were any other Midwest painters out there with that name. I'm it. So
Copyright that. Copyright it.
Yeah, I should. There should be a little trademark at the end of my name.
Right.
But yeah, I think I don't remember if I came up with. Well, I think Kim and I came up with it. We're sitting around because it was originally Darius Glendweller Miniatures, and the reason I call it Darius Glendweller Miniatures is that was my D&D character's name at the time, who was a half elf.
One second here, hold on. We got raided by DM Wolf earlier while we were on break. I didn't even realize that. Thank you, Emmy, for pointing that out. Welcome on in, Raiders. Welcome on in. I am joined by Midwest Miniature Guy. We're doing Off the Pod today. We're chatting away. We're going to talk about miniatures. Thank you for the shout out.
Wait for us, Perthulu!
Thank you for the shout out for DM Wolf. Much appreciated. Thank you, Emmy, for pointing out that we did get a raid by the one and only DM Wolf. I was on DM Wolf's show not long ago. Go ahead and check him out on YouTube as well. Does an amazing creator spotlight where he chats with content creators in the geeky universe. So definitely go and check out that show as well. Does all kinds of stuff. So thank you for the raid. Thank you, Raiders. Welcome on in, everybody. If you're still here, thanks for hanging out through the Be Right Back screen. I very much appreciate it. And DM Wolf, if you're still here, thank you for the raid. I appreciate you, my friend. So yeah, sorry, you were originally what were you originally gonna call it?
Yeah, originally Darius Glendweller Miniatures, because he was my D&D character at the time. I thought, oh, that's kind of a cool name. We'll go with that. And then it just we wanted something that rolled off the tongue a little bit easier, and that I could use like my the initials. So Darius Glendweller, I mean, DGM. That's kind of whatever. But we're like batting around. We're like I live in the Midwest. I paint miniatures and I'm a guy. All right, Midwest Miniature Guy. How about that? Yeah, nobody else out there had anything like that. So
and marketing wise, it says what you do.
Yeah. And MMG just kind of fit. It was perfect for my friend Rowan, who came up with my shield with the paintbrushes on it, and then MMG on the shield, and she put in my favorite color, which was green, my daughter's favorite color, which was purple, and then my wife's favorite color, which was blue. So I think the shield is green with a black stripe, and then the paintbrushes have blue and purple paint on the brush tips. So that's kind of how it came about.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
And you've been, how long you been doing that now? Like, how long have you been like getting paid to paint people's minis?
Let's see, since 2008. It's so funny story. How I started painting was that Kim and I were newly married. We were playing Magic the Gathering at our little kitchen table in our first apartment. And she says, knowing that I grew up drawing comic books and superheroes and stuff like that, she says, well, have you ever thought about painting miniatures? And I was like, well, I've seen them, but I didn't think anybody would. Why would you want to paint such cool pewter figures? That's kind of dumb. And she's like, oh no. And she brings out a bunch, some that she had done with just like poster paint. I'm like, well, okay, those are kind of cool. She says, I should take you to the source. And I said, the source of what? What are you talking about?
For those that don't know, I'm sure he'll explain.
Yes. The source is the mecca of nerddom in Falcon Heights, Minnesota, or Roseville, St. Paul, whatever you want to call it there.
Twin Cities, yeah.
The Twin Cities. So this is before I actually started driving. I knew how to drive, but I hadn't gotten my license out here yet. And her dad drives us down, and we walk into this place. This is the old.
This is the old building on the corner down there,
building,
yeah,
right there on Lexington, on Larpenteur and Snelling. And we walk in, and I'm like,
Thank you, Father Mac, for the follow. Much appreciated. Welcome on in.
I have entered Nerd Mecca. What is this place? Because it's just nothing but comic books down one side and gaming stuff down through the middle.
Yeah, it had its one little room on the side that was just like all comic books, and then the middle was like board games and RPGs, and then they had like a little wall of comics that was separate from the room.
Yeah, well, in the other room, not only were more comics, but it was also like your nerdy movies and nerdy music, stuff like that.
Yeah, I forgot that they carried that stuff. And then they had the back room where you could like play games and sit down and stuff.
Way in the back, you had all the gaming tables.
It was so crowded.
And you were walking through like this most of the time. That's when it was empty. So yeah, we went there. I picked out 4 minis, and then we went to Walmart, picked up a bunch of paints and some crappy brushes, went home and just started slapping paint. And this is before I knew anything about, putting a primer coat on or anything like that. So I'm sitting there trying to put paint on, bare metal, and it's just,
flaking off, falling off.
So I was like, oh, well, this place called Reaper Miniatures, where I got a couple of figures from, has a forum. And I went in and I started seeing just some of these beautifully painted figures. And I'm like, how are you creating? So I started messaging some of these painters. I'm like, how are you creating these skin tones and these metals and stuff like that? And this is before, this is like the infancy of the internet. This is 99, early 2000.
So you were MySpacing them? Is that what you're saying? You're sending them a message on MySpace?
Oh, we weren't even. It was like MySpace wasn't even around yet. I was emailing them, because they'd have their email address and the signature of whenever they would post a photo.
AOL chat.
Yeah, so I was like emailing these folks, and asking them questions, and they would send me back tutorials of how they did stuff. So I was reading tutorials on how to paint. So some of these kids now, they're just like, oh, we'll YouTube stuff, and we'll see Dr. Faust, or we'll see Midwest Miniature Guy stuff, or we'll see James Wapple. These are a bunch of mini painters out there, or Jen Haley, or Rhonda Bender, or now on Twitch, you get to see a bunch of other mini painters out there that for a while you had to go find their DVD, or their, God forbid, VHS,
right,
and sit down at your couch and watch while all your stuff was maybe downstairs, or you had to bring your stuff upstairs and sit at a little card table or something and paint and trying to figure out what they were doing. And now now you're sitting there, and you can watch somebody on Twitch, and they're showing you exactly how they're doing it.
Yeah.
And you can ask them in real time. I wasn't doing that. I was waiting like days for them to respond to an email, kind of a thing. I'm like, I'm waiting to do this so I can kind of a thing. Sometimes they just wouldn't respond. I'm like, okay, well, that one's dried up, ask somebody else, kind of a thing. So yeah, that was late 99, early 2000. And yeah, so I blame Kim for getting me into this hobby. Her and I would sit down and paint for a few hours, and then we'd go off and do something else. And I started getting more and more into it. I wanted my figures, again, being the artist and being a perfectionist. That's my flaw, is that I wanted my stuff to look like some of these other professional mini painters were doing.
Right.
And so I started getting more and more into it. She started getting out of it, and she became the dice goblin. She collects as much mini dice as she could possibly fit into her pocket. And I just started collecting minis and painting more. So in 2008 rolls around, not only did I join the Surfs at that time, but I lost my job. Well, hold on. I say I lost my job. I still knew where the job was. They just didn't want me to come back.
Yeah. You were no longer working there.
I was no longer working there. And so again, having an 8-year-old, I was like, well, I got to have some kind of income coming into the house. And so I took homemade business cards that we printed off on our printer and went down to Source Comics and Games and a couple of other local game stores. And I just started putting my cards up on billboards, up on their little pegboards.
Yeah.
Like you'd see like the gamers wanted, or looking for game or something like that. And other people have like, we make, at the time it's like, we make dice,
right.
But I never saw too many miniature painters doing that. So
right.
I was posting my stuff up, and then you wouldn't know it now, but at that time I was horrified to go and talk. I'm an introvert, to be honest. I like sitting in my basement and painting and being quiet with maybe like a video or some music on or something like that. I'm extrovert when it comes to performing again in the band, being up on stage, because that's kind of my other persona, right?
Right.
MMG is like my other persona. I can talk, I can have fun, I can do stuff like this. I'm exhausted afterwards, but it was terrifying for me to go up to a gaming table of people that are sitting there playing with minis and go, hey, do you need these painted? And so I would hand them out, hand out business cards. And that's how I first started getting commissions. Was this one guy at the Source was like, I have a bunch of minis. How many can you take to paint, and how much do you charge? And I'm like, oh, didn't even think about charging. Jeez, I don't know.
Right.
So I was talking with some other mini painters, and I said, well, how much do you charge per, for commissions? And one of them said, take what you make at your day job and use that. I'm like, okay, well, at the time I make $10 an hour, or I made $10 an hour at my day job. So I'll do that. $10 an hour, however many hours you want me to put into this, that's what I'll charge you. So a few people are like, I just want an hour. I'm like, okay, well, it's $10, whatever. Well, just don't hand me a dragon and want it done in an hour. It's probably not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I finally got to the point where I had to start making minimum hours of how much I would do. So like within like the last 3 or 4 years, I think it was about 4 or 5 years, I said, well, I'm going to charge $20 per hour because that's what I was making at my day job.
Yeah.
With a 2-hour minimum, and then anything extra, however many more hours you want me to put into after the initial 2. The initial 2 is going to get you, and I'd show them an example of, say, a higher than tabletop, quality paint job.
Yeah, it's better than you're gonna get out of a WizKids box.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's not like your pre-painted stuff or anything like that. And people seem to like it. So I started at $10. I'm currently at 20. And so, I mean, a good $10 jump within what, 13 years,
Yeah.
14 years, something like that. And people still like what I do. And I've worked with some amazing folks that I never ever thought that I would paint for. I've painted for Luke, Ernie, and now Heidi Gygax, Gary Gygax's kids.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty cool.
It is. That's awesome.
Gotten to meet them. I've done some work for another TSR employee, Tim Kask, who's a writer for TSR.
Yeah.
For modules. I've done a bunch of stuff for him and a few others. It's just been really interesting to go and like I sat down. This is a funny story. The last GaryCon that I was at, I sat down at this table that that I'd signed up to play a game at, and Skip Williams was the guy that was running the game.
Right.
I don't know if you know who Skip Williams is.
I remember. Yeah, you and I we've had this conversation before. Our audience continue the story because it's kind of cool.
Yeah. So I sit down with this, with Skip. I haven't met Skip before, ever.
And you didn't know it was him, right?
Didn't even know who it was him because he looked nothing like his profile picture that I'd seen. Super, long hair and full beard. He'd grown it all out.
Right.
And the picture that I'd seen was like short hair and clean shaven. And I see some of the figures that he's got out there. I'm like, oh, those are really neat. And I'm like, yeah, I brought a couple of my own. I wasn't sure if if you had any or if you were going to use them or not. And he goes, oh, let me see them. So I showed them to him. He looks at him. He goes, I think I've seen these before. Are you who I think you are? And I'm like, I don't know. Who do you think I am? He's like, you're the Midwest Miniature guy. And I'm like, yeah, I am. How do you know that? And he's like, I've seen your stuff online. I've seen your stuff all over the GaryCon page. Guys, and he's like, the rest of the group had shown up. They're like, guys, we're in the midst of like mini painting royalty kind of a thing. And I'm like, no.
You're like, I just wanted to role play. That's cool that this random GM knows who I am.
Yeah,
because you didn't know who he was.
Right. Yeah. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm Skip Williams. And when I started getting to know him better, I'm like, oh geez, he wrote for TSR. He's like Janelle Jacquez, who recently passed away, actually used him as a model for one of the modules.
Yeah.
Out there too. Back, this is back in TSR days. So.
Well, he also worked on the 3rd edition stuff with Monty Cook, I believe, as well.
I think so. Yeah. So, yeah, it's been fun to get to know those folks but also just to paint for a ton of people. I've painted for folks up in Canada, all around the US, Australia. And I think Australia is probably the furthest that I've sent stuff, but I think the most interesting place that I've sent stuff has been into the heart of India, is where I'd sent some Dark Sword minis.
Nice.
A few years ago, and that was crazy. The guy contacted me. It's like, yeah, I want some of these Game of Thrones minis that Dark Sword is putting out.
Thank you for the follow. I'm not committing tax fraud. What a name. Thank you for the follow. By the way, guys, people in chat, if you guys have questions on painting miniatures, how to paint minis, where to start, where to end, what brushes to use, stuff like that, feel free. Do you have a favorite mini that you've painted? Somebody just asked.
Great question. And I always answer that with the one that I'm currently working on is my favorite mini. Because maybe I've learned a new technique. Maybe I've leveled up in my painting and I'm like, oh, I can do this now. So this is now my favorite mini. I will have to say that I do have some ultimate favorites, and if you don't mind, I want to show them because I have them sitting here. So I am going.
Flip your camera. Somebody once told me while you're getting that flip, somebody once told me that the brush, if you use and maybe it was you that was telling me, if you use the super tiny brush, that it dries out quicker. So that's not the best for details. It
does. Yeah. You actually, I tend to use, even for small details, I'll use like a size 4 or 6.
Okay. You'll have to keep an eye on the stream to see what because you're cropped.
Am I cropped? Okay.
a little bit, so you'll have to see where you're cropped out at.
This is probably one of my favorite minis. My friend Ian sent this to me. It's an Artisan Guild 3D printed figure. I actually had to put the thing together. I had to put the head on and put the body on and everything. I actually had to glue him onto the base, hands. But he is the Frost Giant Jarl from Artisan Guild, and I just had a blast painting this guy.
Move more over to the left a little bit. We're getting more of a view of your phone.
There you go. But here I can do that, and there. But yeah, this is there we go. So now you can really see his face.
Nice.
But he's got
look at that detail. The bright red, bright. Looks like he'd been drinking. He had a couple to drink there.
He's had some mead. Sure. But just great details. The braids. He's got these great shields. The buckles on his belt. If you can see. Anyway, this is one of my favorite ones. He's just got some great details on him. He's got a dwarven hammer.
Yeah.
Here, I can't get it there. Come on, there we go. But yeah, a dwarven hammer here on his bracer. He's got shields right here.
Shields. Oh, because that throws in like this is how big he is.
This is how big he is.
That's a medium-sized person's shield.
Right. That's it. Well, that's a dwarf shield that he's using as bracers on his arm. So yeah, this is probably one of my favorite ones here. The next one is Old Man Logan. This is actually another 3D print. There we go.
Do you prefer working with minis or metal? Somebody asks.
Oh, plastic minis or metal? Either one. Metal figures tend to have better detail. They're sharper detail. However, some of the hard plastic injected molding, or even like this Artisan Guild one, that's a resin print, so they can get even deeper details now than they were able to do so even just a couple of years ago. So either one. I guess plastic right now for bigger figures, just because it's lighter.
Yeah.
You know, like the Reaper Bones material, or the Bones Black, is really nice because it's nicer details. But
do you do any modification work, or do you want people to have those modifications done ahead of time?
I can do it. It just adds on to the time.
Gotcha. So like if they give you a 3D printed thing, but they haven't put the stuff over it and sanded it out to make it look like it's not 3D printed, you just it's up to them whether they want you to fix that or whether they just want you to paint it with the 3D print lines on there.
Yep, exactly. This is another fun one. This is another resin bust. This is
emphasis on bust.
Emphasis on bust, yeah. There we go. This is Lilith from Diablo 4, I believe.
Yeah, the new Diablo game.
Diablo game. So, but she was a ton of fun. Quite a few hours, and almost all of these figures, all the busts and stuff, except for the Frost Giant, he will not be there. The stuff that I'm showing here is actually going to be at Con of the North in the middle of February for sale. So if you see something and you're in the Minneapolis area, go to Con of the North, pick it up.
And even if you're not, go to the Con of the North. I'll be there.
Go to the Con of the North anyway. Yeah. This is
maybe that's where we'll do an epic con, and we'll just host it at Con of the North.
There you go. This is Tanis Half-Elven from Dragonlance.
Oh yeah.
This is actually a 75 millimeter, I believe, figure.
Okay. Nice. Hello, Secret Window. Welcome in.
And then this is so all of those have been 3D printed, either resin or whatever. This is actually a metal dragon. This is an old figure from Reaper Miniatures that I painted last night.
Oh wow.
And
is that the one you did on stream?
This is the one that I on stream last night. Yep. And I used a new technique to me that I had actually seen like a half an hour before I was streaming last night. I'm like, I'm using that. I have a a white prime dragon. I'm going to use this technique. And so what would have normally probably taken me a couple of hours probably took me about 45 minutes to an hour to finish this last night.
Okay.
So, and I can go over that technique if anybody is interested. But yeah, this.
So I've got two minis of yours in front of me here.
All right.
One of them is mine. One of them is mine. This is older. Let's see if you recognize. Let's see if you recognize. Here's an R. Let's see if it focuses. See if it focuses. Get me out of the way. Here. Hand focus right there. Nope.
Sort of. It's trying.
Where's my phone? Where's my phone when I need it? I don't even have my phone. I'm like, I could flashlight it and that'll change the light. All right.
I recognize it a little bit.
Hold on, let me clear out my little messy area here. I got a little spot here. I can do what you did. I got that. I got this. We got this, guys. We're live. I'm gonna pause the timer while we're doing this.
Okay, yeah.
While we're doing this run. All right. So here's one. We'll see if you recognize. This is an older one. This has got to be 7-8 years maybe now.
Okay.
Here we go. You guys don't need all of that.
Oh yeah.
I don't even know if you knew.
Was that one that Matt gave me?
It is.
Wedding?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he actually had two of them. One of them was a misprint, and they sent him an extra one because the first one was misprinted.
Okay.
And it was from one of the early Hero Forges. This is one of the super early Hero Forges that they did, and they screwed up. But he had me custom or make it like, hey, you should design this on my thing. And then that year he had gotten married, and he had given every one of his groomsmen a mini that you had painted.
Yep.
So
yeah, and in fact, I painted their cake toppers.
You did. You certainly did.
Painted their cake toppers, and so yeah, it was pretty cool to have my work on somebody's wedding cake. And in fact, I just did that again last year because there were other friends of Matt and Aubrey who contacted me because they liked the work that I'd done for them, and they're like, hey, we want you to do our cake toppers too.
Oh, okay. Was that recently? Super recent?
Yeah, I want to say their wedding was back in September 20th.
Was it David and Haley?
Yes.
Yes. That's Adam's brother and
yeah, okay. Yep.
The blind GM for those that don't know. All right. See if you recognize this one, if we can get the light to.
Oh yeah. I remember him once I see him, but most of the time it's I paint it.
If the light would just adjust, why won't the light adjust on this one, for crying out loud?
It's trying.
There we go.
There you go. Oh yeah. Yeah, that was a fun one.
So that one you did that one for Adam as well, aka the blind GM.
Blind GM, yeah. So, yeah, I've done a ton of stuff for Adam, for Matt and Aubrey.
Well, and the thing is like for Adam especially, when you're blind, literally, like I like to paint my own minis from time to time. Not often, because I'm also kind of lazy, and I'm not really that good. I think I'm okay. At it. All right. Before I restart the timer, we're gonna do something fun. Are you ready to do something fun?
Sure. What do you got?
All right. Now, I don't want you to blow smoke. I'm gonna show you 3 miniatures, and I want you to rate them 1 through 10.
Okay.
All right. You can't. I'm grinning on my face because this is funny. All right. We're gonna put these in chronological order of when they were painted. Now, I am not a professional miniature painter. Far from it.
Okay.
But on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being your work, right? 10 being
sure.
Like the best work, and 1 being a 5-year-old. Hopefully I'm not a 5-year-old. All right, let's see if this.
Oh, I recognize that guy. That's another. That's a Reaper mini, isn't it?
I think so. I just love all of the
Yeah.
details. It's from an art that somebody submitted.
Okay. Yep.
So not a ton of shading. I was never really awesome at the whole shading for emphasis sort of thing.
Sure. So that's, to be honest, that's kind of where,
Except for maybe that
to an
dragon. I might have
extent,
done a
I
little on that
started.
dragon.
Yeah. That's kind of where I started. It was just like I said, it was like slapping paint. So I'd give that like a four,
Okay.
4 or 5.
Awesome. Awesome. This one I did later. He's a little beat up. Not too detailed. Pretty simple. You can't really do much with, I mean you can, but black is black.
Black is black. Yeah. Unless you did like a purple black or a blue black or a brown black or a gray black or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
But I would say that's a solid 3.5.
3.5. All right. All right.
Yeah.
Let's say no. I've been told to check
The
a chat.
the paint thinner, the thinner layers are better on it. So I guess I go 4. Got to work on those highlights. I've been trying to talk to another friend of mine who's getting back into the hobby after several years of not being in it, and
Yeah.
several be like 20.
Sometimes
And
go ahead.
he's a big Warhammer player, so I've been trying to coach him into enjoy the process and thin your paints.
Sometimes those highlights, sometimes they're so strong they throw me off.
Mhm.
And and you and I have talked about this on the side. That's a personal thing for me, where it's like sometimes I'm like, well, it's got a shape to it. Shouldn't it auto shade? Even though it's not. All right, this one is a little bit. There's a little bit more detail. You can't. There we go.
Okay.
There's a little bit more with the shading there, and obviously like blacking out his face because the shadow of the whatever.
Right. What figure is that? That looks familiar.
The sword doesn't go with the mini. I put a different
Okay.
sword on there.
Okay, so you modified it.
So
That
I
looks like
modified.
the young hedge knight from Dark Sword Miniatures. Is that correct?
It might be. I like Dark Sword. You can't really tell.
Yeah, I like Dark Sword too.
So I made the bottom of the cape actually look dirty, and you can't see it in
Mhm.
the camera, which makes me sad. But
I give that a solid 6.5 or 7.
yes,
Specifically because you did you actually put some basing on the base
thanks. I appreciate that.
and
Hey, I
the
consider that a win.
work on the cloak. Work on the cloak. Oh, and also for modifying it. Not too many people go ahead and I'm just gonna, either take this hand off or open up the hand and put a new sword in or anything like that. I've done that quite a bit. So
Yeah,
and that's always
the sword part was weird.
nerve-wracking.
I learned that, and I was like, okay. And I asked a couple people. I was like, I don't know how to do this, and then we just figured it out, and I got it on there, and it
Yeah.
worked out.
One thing that I learned, this was years ago, if I was going to swap a weapon out of their hand, is depending on, like there was one where it was a spear, but the spear had broken off, and so I needed to do something with the rest of that. So I ended up cutting off the rest of the spear at the bottom of the hand, drilling out the hand with a little pin drill. Then you cut the thumb, right where the thumb hits the
Yeah.
fingers. You
Yeah.
cut that so you could open up the hand, and then you can place whatever weapon you want in there. And then
Oh.
you just, with like some little uh, tiny nose pliers, you can then squeeze the hand back together
Yeah.
with like just a little drop of glue, and then that weapon will never move. So there's a little hobby hack there for you if you ever need to swap a weapon. Just drill the hand out and open it up,
Nice.
and you can close it back around.
And I apologize to people that are watching if you're dropping out. It looks like we've reset twice apparently in this process. So on my end, it looks like it's been solid, but I noticed a couple times on my alternate viewing device, it's like freezes out and I need to reload and stuff. So if it's freezing out for you guys, I apologize. I am sorry. You'll just have to watch the VOD. If the VOD works, I guess, technically.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that would be fun. Did have to reload twice, but that's it. Yeah, I'm noticing. I'm also noticing that it's not counting our people that are like lurking in the background anymore.
Right.
So,
But
it is
you
what it
you had
is.
asked about brushes, or somebody had asked about brushes or something like that.
Yeah. The
And
little I was told the little tiny thin ones don't work well for details. I think that was you that told me that.
so these are the three brushes that I use the most. So this is my main brush, the size 6, because it's a nice when it's wet, it has a nice sharp tip to it, and it'll hold a lot of paint. So I can sit there and paint and not have to go keep dipping back, dipping my brush back into the paint to keep going.
Yeah.
So this is a great kind of like overall base coat brush. I'll also use it for any other details, belts and whatever. Once I start getting into the little minutia, little details of stuff, that's when I go to I think this is a size 1. Nope, this is a size 2. And then this is my size 0. And every once in a while I'll use a size 1 depending on how small or how big some of those details are. The size 0 I tend to use for eyeballs, um, because most of the stuff that I'm painting is 25 to 32 millimeters tall,
Right.
so their eyes are super tiny. And for the most part, I'm using this just to do the whites of the eye. And I don't use like a bright white either. I actually use, it's called a linen white. So it's kind of an off white. Um, and then I don't have them down. I do have one down here, but it's a larger size. But I like using the micron pins, like a 0.005 nib, to do the eyeballs, because you can just go
Oh,
in there,
because you can just.
pop,
I never
and you're
even thought
done.
about that. I was always like, I gotta use a paintbrush to do the eye. I never even thought to just use a fucking marker or a pen.
Yep, yep. The micron pins are really great because they're used in like comic book art and stuff like that too.
Mm-hmm.
So the nibs are really nice, and you can just dot the eyes and call it done. So, and granted, some of these other ones that I've painted, like the old man Logan, I used a brush on the eyes because they're actually colored. They're not just like a little dark,
Yeah, and it's bigger. You're not looking at something this
bigger.
big where you're like,
Right.
my eye is the size of the entire miniature.
Yes. Yep. That's those are my tips for brushes. My other tips also is just thin your paints to the consistency of milk. Um, and it should take between 2 to 3 thin coats to build up the color that you want for your initial base coat, and then you can start doing your midtones and your highlights.
How do you know which color to use for your base coat? That was a poorly timed question.
um for the initial base coat, so if I'm doing, well, it's hard to see on this, but this is a little red wizard that I was painting last night. So reds and yellows along with whites tend to be some of the harder colors to paint because they're so bright, and then once you thin them down, then they become translucent. So you have to keep building up the colors, right?
Yeah.
You have to keep putting many layers down. Well, you don't want to do that if you just don't want to glob it on there. So when painting reds, I actually start with a really dark red. And maybe if I need to, I'll add a little bit of either blue or black into it. The other thing that I did on this figure too is I used a dark brown wash over the top of that dark red to get down into the recesses. And then I could go back with that dark red and reestablish that color. So now our base coat's down. We've got a wash on it, which has given us our shadows. We've reestablished it. Now we can go in and start mixing colors, mixing the next shade. So I actually have like so if you look over here, in fact, I can move the camera over here. That's some of my paints.
Right.
Right. Here's some more down here.
You gotta come.
Facing materials and all sorts of fun stuff. Right. In fact, this is my photo taking booth. It's all over here. Here's a bunch of other minis, some that aren't painted, some that are. some more busts back in there. So yeah, this is my hobby area down here.
Right.
But so for that red, I used 4 different shades of red. I started with Bloodstain Red, which is like a deep, dark red. It actually has either like a little bit of blue or black in it to darken it down,
Right.
or maybe even a little bit of brown. There's also like barn reds and stuff like that, or brick red as another nice dark red that you can start with. Like I said, then I used it's called a wash. This is the one that I used. It's called Agrex Earthshade. This is from Citadel Colors or Games Workshop, and I use a lot of different types of paints too. So
Red says, do you ever have trouble finding a color you want?
Yep, and that's when I start mixing them. I start messing around trying to figure out, well, what the color that I want looks like this. So I'm going to use, that's when like color theory comes into play. And either grabbing a color wheel or going online and finding one or something like that. And you want to try and find your contrasting colors. So like a red orange is going to go well with whatever is on the opposite side of that color wheel.
Right.
You know, I think it's interesting. A lot of folks will say, well, purple doesn't go well with green. It goes great with green if you're doing like monsters or aliens or something
I
like
thought
that.
purple and green goes great together. I don't know.
I think it goes great. Yeah, to me, it goes great. Again, if you're a Packers fan, green and gold work really well together. Red and gold work super well together. Colors like that. What I try to stay away from, unless I'm meaning to do it,
The Hulk, yeah, the Hulk is purple and green. There we go.
Purple and green. If I'm meaning to do it, I try to stay away from reds and greens together, because that just goes Christmas, and
they're also opposing colors on the way your eye translates it.
Yep.
That's actually the reason that is the reason that Freddy Krueger has a green and red striped sweater, is because the director said that creates a sense of nausea in the brain, yeah. Seeing those two colors and having them in lines like that. That's the reason it's supposed to be bright green and red. Like if you watch the original runs, the reason it's colored like that is because that's supposed to add to the sense of this is a nightmare scene. When you see him, the colors do tricks on your eyes. And then later iterations, they didn't get that. So they're like, well, we're just going to make it kind of a greeny, like a brown green and a brown red. And you're not really going to tell it's dirty. It's like, that takes away from it. That's the point.
Right. So yeah, I tend to mix a lot. So yeah, the 4 colors that I was using on this little wizard is Bloodstain Red, Clotted Red, Carnage Red, and then Fresh Blood. And they all go up in shade and in lightness. So Bloodstain Red is the nice dark red. Clotted Red is kind of a medium dark. Carnage Red, we're getting brighter. It's again kind of a medium red, and then fresh blood is your nice bright red. There's also another red, which is brilliant red, which is even brighter than that. If you wanted to go, that's what I used for the wizard, because you're not going to put white in to create your highlights, because then it goes pink. Now you could put orange or yellow in, but then it's going to go orange or too far yellow if I wanted to keep that nice red. So that's why you want to try and find a nice deep dark red and then move up the scale from that.
So keep picking reds. Don't add whites to make it a lighter shade.
Yeah, because then it goes pastel.
Yeah.
Right? White makes everything pastel. Black makes everything dirty. So you want to try and find those. Like Reaper came up with a really cool thing. That's why I like using the Reaper paints, and just I have a ton of different paints, but I like using them because they came up with the triad system: your base coat shadow, your midtone, and your highlight.
Yeah. So when you buy a red, they release the 3 of that whatever.
Yeah.
So
and then you go do that. Boom. There you go. It's great for skin tone. Like I've got one of the ones that I use quite a bit is tan shadow, tan skin, tanned highlight. Use it a lot for like my barbarians and stuff like that because, you know, especially my Vikings. I painted up a bunch of Vikings and I was like, this is perfect. So use that. But since it's paint, you can put a wash on it and darken it down. You can mix those colors together to create gradients
Right.
in those skin tones. So that way, do what you want. Anyway, so yeah, you create these gradients, and that's what I've done with Old Man Logan here, and with a few others, especially with the Jarl. Is that I created these gradients, and you can do this with any color.
Right.
It's not just red, or it's not just flesh tones, or it's not just whatever. You can do it with any color. So you can have the blue skinned alien, you can have the purple skin, you know, cloaked, whatever. It's just using those in conjunction with your base coat, your midtone, and your highlight. So like I was doing with this red robed wizard, say that 5 times fast. Yeah, you can't do it, right? Is once I put the wash on there, because it's a dark brown, it's not a black wash. You can use black washes on certain things. I wouldn't use it on a red, but you can use a dark brown wash to get down into the cracks and crevices and the folds of cloaks and stuff like that, or for this guy, robes.
Right.
Once it dries, you've got that shadow in there now that you can work back up to.
Yeah.
Your base coat and then your midtones and your highlights. So I actually have a shirt, and you'll probably see me wear it if you come to Con of the North, where it'll say, I think it says base coat, wash, highlight, table. So yeah, that's kind of the, you know, and
you better get 3 of them for one for every day.
Right. Well, I do. I'm actually wearing my designated miniature painting shirt.
Nice.
Tonight.
Does it have little spots of paint on it for where you like wipe off your thumb and stuff? And is that intentional? Is that intentional?
It is not intentional. No, it's actually on the shirt. But another kind of like the miniature painter's mantra is deeper shadows and higher highlights. So you want those shadows to be good and darks, especially like, so there's different ways that you can do shading without even using a wash if you didn't want to.
Right.
You can do, you know, you can have your base coat be what James Wapple calls it is the shaded base coat. It's when you take your main base coat color and you add a darker shade to it, and you shade that down as your base coat, and then you just start highlighting up midtones, highlights, and go from there.
Right.
Of course, he's now using oils, and it's crazy to watch him. Like, he'll paint something in 2 hours and be like, well, I'm almost done. I'm like, I would be, you know. But he's like, yeah, in 2 hours I got all this done. And I'm like, holy cow. And he moves pretty fast too. But and there's still, like, I'm actually calling this guy, if you saw him up closer, if I could do that here, hold on.
All right.
It's this one here. There we go.
Oh, there.
So here's my little red wizard.
And that's for someone, right?
No, this one's actually for me.
That's
this
just
is
for
not
you?
a commission. This is just for me.
Whoever is in his games, run.
Yeah. But I'm calling him my evil Obi-Wan Kenobi because he looks just like Obi-Wan Kenobi in the face.
Okay.
See if I can get him closer here.
And then it's gonna have to focus on it. You're gonna have to do the hand trick like I did. There you go. Oh, you can manually focus, can't you?
I'm using my DSLR.
Yeah, you've got a manual focus. Clone Wars Darth Sidious vibe.
Yep.
Look at that. Throwback to our beginning where we were talking about the Star Wars.
But yeah, he's my my evil Obi-Wan Kenobi. So, but I am going to use him in my 5th ed game. But because at some point in time, my players are going to make it to Rashomon and the other side of Faerun. They're headed that direction, so they get to
Nice.
meet up with those guys.
Cool.
But
Our
yeah,
next topic is potluck. It's anything and anything we want to talk about. Anything and everything. Nice. So if the people in chat want to talk about anything, feel free to talk about stuff. I want to start the timer here. What about you? What's new in your world that you're super excited about? Besides the stuff we've already talked about.
Besides the stuff we already talked about, my daughter's getting married in March, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Oh, nice. Are you prepared for that?
Yes, with a huge slice of no. I'm just glad that she found a really nice guy.
Yeah.
That I am happy to call him my future son-in-law, and at some point in time, my son-in-law. So that's really cool. He takes. I wanted. Okay, this is gonna sound like old-fashioned bullcrap stuff, but I wanted somebody for my daughter, and I knew that she was gonna pick whoever she was gonna pick, but I wanted somebody that was going to, excuse me here, but kind of man up and take care of her, right? And not just financially, but like emotionally taking care of her and physically, and just be a good partner for her. And she did. She found a really nice guy.
That's awesome.
So I'm excited for him. And I mean, it was one of those things where I knew things were progressing quickly when they bought their house together.
Right.
And moved out a couple of years ago, and I was like, she's at 21, they were both 21 years old, and they're buying a house. I'm like, at 21 years old, are you kidding me? I was out playing, gigs with my band out in Seattle, trying to make it as a musician, and working at a little musical instrument shop. I wasn't thinking about buying a house.
Right.
And yeah, her deal was that she wanted a house, she wanted a dog, and then she wanted a ring. That was that was her stipulation to this guy. So they bought the house. Within a year, on Christmas, he brought her home a dog for a Christmas present, and then the following year, they got engaged. So I'm like, well, there you go, kid. You got exactly what you asked for. And it wasn't like she put like ultimatums on him. She was just like, this is what I want at some point in time.
Right.
And he did it. He made it happen. So he's always been very, very thoughtful, works hard, and he's a great guy. And I can't wait to get to know them as a couple even more. And then they're like, oh yeah, and we want a couple kids. I'm like, really, grandkids? Okay, ones that I can go, this one's yours, and hand them back to you.
Yeah. And then you can buy them all the annoying toys that people bought them when they were kids.
Right.
Like, yeah, this one makes a lot of noise. I'm totally buying this one.
Oh yeah. Oh, and when Grandpa's a drummer, so
here's your own drum set.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I have one.
Here's the djembe. Here's some bongos. Just get you started.
Here's some bongos. Yeah. I actually have my very first kit that I bought. I still have, and I want to take it to Twin Cities Drum Collective and actually have it refurbished, and then give it to her as like a dad heirloom kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And that way, her kids could play on it or whatever. But yeah.
Do they game at all? Are they geeks, role players, any of that kind of stuff?
Yes. They
like, are you going to have to make them some cake toppers? I'm just checking, because
no, I don't get to paint them anything. I don't get to play music at their wedding. I was like, hey, I know a band, and they're like, you're not playing in a band at our wedding. You're doing dad stuff. I'm like, all right, fine. But they're board gamers. They love board games. We got Lynn. She had played role-playing games for a little bit and got out of it. That's just not her shtick.
Yeah.
But they love playing Magic the Gathering together, so they like playing those card games together. Board games. and he is a big PC gamer. So he actually made a computer for her, created her own PC for, built it, and got her playing, I think it's Call of Duty,
Okay.
Black Ops or something like that,
Okay.
and Fortnite and whatever. And I'm like, well, I know that you and like her and I would sit down and we would play like MLB 2005 and like Star Wars Battlefront on
Right.
the PS2. I'm like, do you enjoy, like, you had fun playing that, but do you enjoy playing these PC games with him? Like, is this something that you actually enjoy, or you're just doing it because you can spend time with him? And she goes, no, I'm actually really good, Dad, and I have a lot of fun. I'm like, cool, I'm glad. So that's kind of their nerdiness.
Yeah. So now you got to get one so you can go play with them. Just show up and just start like
Right.
killing them.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Did you not know I played too? Just kidding.
I play too. Yeah. I am a horrible computer game player. Because I don't like using the keys. I much prefer a control pad.
Yeah.
Um,
Same.
but yeah, and
A lot of games now are compatible. You can get a controller for your PC.
That's true.
I know.
That's
I've
very
got
true.
one right here.
Yeah. So yeah, it and with this new computer that I just got too, I'm like, oh, there's some cool free games out there. I might check them out,
Yeah.
but then I don't want to get sucked into that because I'm already just elbow shoulder deep into playing Red Dead Redemption 2
Yeah, I
still.
love that game.
So
Yeah, Red Knight Jedi says he loves the Battlefront games, and I know he's going to respond because I know he loves Red Dead Redemption 2. Probably more than I do, which is...
I am a huge Red Dead Redemption 2 fan. I am such a fan of that game that I went and I created my own tabletop RPG for it.
Oh, nice.
I
would have just used Deadlands.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I thought. I'm like, oh, I could use Deadlands, I could use Savage Worlds, I could use D20 Modern. I wanted something like a little bit more with some flavor. So I went with some D&D 3.5 mechanics because I like some of the feats.
Yeah.
Like quick draw, point blank shot. This is stuff that gunslingers are going to use, right?
Right.
But then also like they could use the alchemy or the feat or skill or whatever.
Yeah.
Spot checks and listen checks and stuff like that. But then I grabbed the damage and the ranges from Spycraft for the weapons.
Okay.
And then some of you may know this, but there's an old RPG out there called GURPS. It's called the Generic Universal Role-Playing System. Steve Jackson Games put it out, which you can play anything with, from sci-fi, fantasy to sci-fi to modern to whatever. But the one aspect that I loved about it was the critical hit silhouette. You take a D6, you roll your D6, and that's where you hit on the body.
Yeah.
So of course, 1 being the head, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for the legs.
And you get penalties for called shots too, right? Didn't you get penalties? Like you could call a shot
and shots, and yeah. So it's like -4 or 5 or something like that if you try to do a called shot. So Redneck, you're gonna like this. I know that in the video game you have Eagle Eye, which I'm not really using, but you also have Fan the Hammer, where you can sit there and just bam, bam, all 6 shots, right? I'm like, this is a cool mechanic for the video game. How do I bring it into a tabletop game? So I made it specifically that only the gunslinger class, because you actually have 2 classes. You have your non-criminal class, your occupation, and then your criminal stuff.
Yeah.
So say that you were a doctor, so you have some doctor stuff, but then you also have like your criminal, I make poisons.
Yeah. Eagle Eye and Dead Eye are my best friends in the game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, but only the gunslinger is going to get Fan the Hammer. However, when the gunslinger uses it, he can only use it against 1 opponent. So you get 6 shots. You get I think I made it that you get a +1 or a +2 to each shot because you're using it one opponent.
Yeah.
However, you have to use a revolver, and once you're done, you have to reload. you could drop the weapon and grab another one, but that's an action. But you have to either then take cover and reload your weapon or grab something different.
Right.
Because I'm not just going to let you just keep firing with an empty weapon.
Right.
And so I actually made it that you have to reload. So once you're done with those 6 or 8 shots in a Lancaster repeater, or your bolt action is just one shot,
Yeah.
kind of a thing.
I think
You can
Deadlands
find-
had a good one where it was like you could fan the hammer, but every additional fan that you did increase the difficulty increase, because every time you hit that, you're straying a little bit.
You're straying a little way. Yep.
So
And
yeah,
I wanted this
I
to
did
be a
like
little
that
bit more
as
of
well.
the. Yeah, I wanted this one to be a little bit more of the using the dead eye or the eagle eye
Yeah.
thing, but just you're focused just on that one
Yeah.
opponent. So it's been fun.
Did you play the original Red Dead Revolver? Did you play that one?
I didn't. I wanted to play that one, knowing that Red Dead Redemption, the original game, is then the Red Dead Redemption 2 being the
Prequel.
prequel. I was like, oh, of course it is, and it's for like the PS3. I'm like, I've got a PS4. I can't. It's not compatible.
It's in the store. They're both in the PlayStation store. You're welcome.
Are they in the Oh, okay.
Yeah. I know Red Dead Revolver is in the PlayStation store because I went and bought it.
Okay.
Yeah, the Red Dead. So the original one, Red Dead Revolver, was very spaghetti western. Like the intro was like the music for it was classic spaghetti western. It had that feel. The characters in it were like, I was so in love with that game and the story of that game. And then of course, then you get Red Dead Redemption and you're like, oh, sweet. And I got the game. I was like, where's Red? Like the main character's name is Red. That's why it's called Red Dead Revolver. So I assumed with Red Dead Redemption, Red would be in. No. He's there's a couple of secret mentions of references in there, but that's about it.
Is that Uncle?
That's a lot of people think it's Uncle. A lot of people think low-key that it's Uncle.
Red Harlow. Yeah.
I don't think he is. Because he's too much of a sniveling whiny brat to be Red Harlow, but
Redneck Jedi says that the first Red Dead Redemption has been released for PS4 now. He has it.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
I may have to track that down.
It's great. And I heard that they're there's a guy who personally was taking it and he was remastering it with the Red Dead 2 graphics. He was literally importing the game Red Dead Redemption into Red Dead Redemption 2 because it uses mostly the same map, and he was importing the game into there in order for you to play him chronologically.
Oh, chronologically. Oh, nice.
And you could play it, and the plan was you could choose to do it chronologically by order of release or chronologically storyline wise.
Sure.
And the idea was like storyline wise, where you'd play Red Dead Redemption 2 and then you'd start Red Dead Redemption, pretty much where you left off. And he got about halfway through and he was releasing it. A lot of people were like super excited, and Rockstar Games brought him to court over it.
Of course they did.
And a cease and desist. And then he had to hand over all of the stuff. And then they hired him to finish it for them. And the guy hasn't spoken since. He's like, yeah, it's all good. No flame wars, no nothing, guys. I'm still working on it. I'm just working on it for them. So we'll see if it actually comes out.
That would be fantastic if they put out a compilation where you could play all 3 of them.
Oh yeah, that'd be kind of cool.
I'm actually running the train heist that I first ran for my Thursday night group at Con of the North this year. I'm calling my game Outlaws and Law Dogs, so I'm not calling it Red Dead Redemption or anything. I'm using Outlaws and Law Dogs, but it's set in the Red Dead Redemption universe. It's my own thing. It's not going to be published. I'm just having fun. So Rockstar, don't come after me.
Well, you're just running a game. It's not like they can.
I'm just running a game, and I'm not trying to sell it or anything like that. But it's a ton of fun. I love playing westerns with these guys. And one of my players, his name's Chris, and we call him LT because we have 2 Chris's in our group. And when he found out that I was going to run them through a train heist, he's like, "Hey, we get to do a train heist! Oh my god, it's going to be so funny!" He just like flipped out, and yeah, he had just a blast. So I run it every once in a while now. We've done probably 4 games of like 4 sessions. So it's more episodic. So the first one was the train heist, and they had like 2 days to come up with a plan to rob this train and get these get the money and this paperwork out of the back of the train and get it to this other bad guy. They did a bank robbery, then they did a stagecoach heist, and then I had them do a run and hide session where they literally were making ride checks and hide checks and move silently checks through Lemoyne and up through the Heartlands and up into Strawberry, because they were being chased by 3 or 4 different bounty hunter and lawman groups, and the lawmen were making rolls to see if they could track them down.
Yeah, I love that. So, I never thought to like do an Old West RPG set in the Red Dead Redemption world. That's really cool. I like that.
I mean, it has 2 maps, the reversible map. I mean, this is perfect.
Yeah.
And I'll just, like I said,
where all the buildings are and stuff, so you could just like it'd be super easy to overhead map for if you wanted to do a Roll20 thing or whatever. Where all the buildings are, the layouts of all the rooms. If not, you just go in there and look.
Oh yeah, it was really cool. Like I had them. They're right now. They are wintering up at Hanging Dog Ranch, and they have driven away some of the O'Driscoll gang.
Nice.
To winter up there. So that's where they're at right now. We might pick it up back, more in the spring. And I've got some ideas for some fun lawmen. I actually introduced this is how nerdy I am. I introduced Matthew Quigley from Quigley Down Under as one of my lawmen in Lemoyne, as the sharpshooter with his big rifle.
Yeah.
So I used him. I used it's not Doc Holliday, but I used a miniature of Doc Holliday from Reaper as one of my Pinkertons. And there's a cool song out there by a guitar player singer named Steve Hackett. If you get a chance, go find him. Specifically the Wild Orchids album. There's a song on there, "Man in the Long Black Coat." It's a Western song.
Okay.
It's spaghetti Western song. It's super cool. And I'm like, how can I incorporate this guy, this character that he's singing about, into this game? And I'm thinking about making him a solo bounty hunter that goes to go find their group and try and track them down and bring them in.
Okay, I gotta jump back to your heist game. You're talking about like references. I did an Old West game, and the idea was we ended up using Deadlands. The idea was it was like a new group of people on and so I ended up making a character based off of Willie Nelson. Have you ever seen the movie Once Upon a Texas Train?
Oh, it sounds familiar, but it's been a while.
So Once Upon a Texas Train it starts off with Willie Nelson getting out of prison because he was a bank robber that got caught.
Okay.
And he got out, and the first thing he wants to do is go rob a train.
Oh shit.
So he gets the old crew together, but they're all like, because he spent 30-40 years in prison. And so they're all like, yeah, this is the best bomb guy, and this guy with big giant like Coke bottle glasses that can barely move. He's deaf, he can't hear anything, but he's still the best bomb, dynamite guy. And, so there's all these things. Well, once he gets out, the guy that caught him comes out of retirement because he knows he's gonna rob again. And the current young punk, like lawmen are like, psh, he's not gonna do that. What are you talking about?
Right.
And of course, there's a new gang. There's young 20-some, 30-some gang members are out there doing stuff as well. So it's just this chaotic thing, and it's just a hilarious, fun old west spaghetti western with Willie Nelson as the main character as this
I love
old
stuff like
school
that.
thing. And I was like, that would be super cool to have this guy that's just been caught, who's like this legendary whatever, but now he's just like an old guy that used to be someone, and now like the time's caught up with him.
That's interesting because we just watched, and this is kind of semi off topic, but we're on potluck right now. We just watched the last.
We were on potluck.
Yeah,
we can still. You said that, and I looked down. I'm like, it says 5 seconds.
5 seconds. Yeah. We just watched one of the last Despicable Me movies.
Oh yeah.
Where it's like the Rise of Gru or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And there's literally a character in there that's played by Alan Arkin. That's the old villain, and he becomes Gru's mentor towards the end of the movie. It's absolutely, it's great. If you get a chance, go watch it. I think it was on. I think it's either on Peacock or Hulu or something like that. But it's good.
Nice. Might be on Disney Plus too, because they get a lot of Pixar stuff on there as well.
This isn't Pixar. So it was Imagination or something like that. So
or
it's
DreamWorks.
not DreamWorks or something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's a great, good fun movie.
Nice. All right. As we close down here, you want to shout people your social media handles, where they can find you, and again, even if you're in India, you can paint minis and he'll ship them to you.
That's right.
So if you guys need minis painted, miniatures painted, this is the guy to go to.
Yep. The main one that I'm on the most is my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Midwest Miniature Guy, all one word. And you can see all of the examples of my stuff on there. Instagram is Midwest Mini Guy, @Midwest Mini Guy. You can find me on there. And then I had to change up my X/Twitter/dumpster fire of that site to Mid Mini Guy, because of course Midwest Mini Guy was already taken by me for my old account because my phone died and I lost my password. So I have a new account there. I'm on Discord. You can find me there as well. And then pretty much just Google Midwest Miniature Guy and you'll find me. I'm the only one. If you want to contact me for commissions, you can email me at midwestminiatureguy@gmail.com.
Awesome.
And of course, Twitch. I'm on Twitch.
And on Twitch, yep. There's the shout out for Twitch. So people can go there. Yep. I posted the link to your Facebook account.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
All that, so people can go there as well. And if you want to get on Blue Sky, I can get you a code to get in on Blue Sky.
I'm on Blue Sky as well. I forgot about that. I was at Gamehole Con this last October.
I thought you were on there. I was like, he's not. I'm pretty sure he is. Well, if not, then
I'm on Blue Sky. Not that often because I keep forgetting I have it. it's another one of those another site. I'm like, oh yeah, I've got that too, and I need to go.
Sometimes I post on there, nothing happens, but sometimes I post on there and it's like a barrage. So,
but we're up to like 377 followers here on Twitch, which is super cool. I wish they all watched at the same time. That'd be awesome.
Right. Amen to that.
But slowly but surely, I've been on Twitch now for just over 3 years, and we're having fun. We're painting minis. We're chatting about role-playing games and movies and music and life in general and whatever. So come on by, and I would be streaming tonight. I told him I might pop on at 9 or something like that, and
go on
work
after
on something
this.
else. But normally I'm on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Sundays from 8 Central to whenever I'm done. Normally around 10:30.
All right. So. Awesome. Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for joining me tonight. I appreciate it. Thanks for
having me.
Postponing your Monday stream. It means a lot to me. And of course, we'll see you at Con of the North in February.
Yes, Con of the North is coming up February 16th through the 18th at the Crown Plaza Hotel and Event Center, Convention Center, something like that, in lovely Plymouth, Minnesota.
Yeah, which is in the Twin Cities area. It's just west of Minneapolis. So
yeah, it's southwest of me. So
yeah, it's straight west of me.
Yep. But yeah, it's another one of those, like, the cons around the Midwest. You've got Gamehole Con, Gary Con of the North, Mini Con. I mean, there's a ton that are around here. And so if you're ever in the Midwest, look up those cons and go to them, because they're not just, some of them aren't just gaming cons. Like Convergence is coming up in July of next year, and that's kind of like a big fan
Yeah, that's like a cosplay costume
fandom
dress up.
cosplay, yeah. But with like a really great vendor hall and some cool like speakers and things like that.
Right.
So it's pretty neat. But yeah, there's a ton of stuff here in the Midwest to do that's not out in the cold.
It's a fair way of putting it. It's a fair way of putting it.
For those of us that do not like outdoor cold weather sports and stuff, that we go do cons.
Yeah. All right.
Or gigs. Come to a surfs gig.
Right. I would post a link, but I couldn't find any for the surf, so I was like, well, I'll just post. Here's an old there's one from like 2017 that was like a profile from a website. I forget what it was called. That I had posted. It was, I'm trying to find it now.
Go to
Reverb Nation.
Yeah, that's an old one. I don't think we're even on there anymore.
I posted that. I had a list that had one of the albums on there, and I had all that on there.
Yeah.
So if you find a link and you want to post it in the chat, then go for it.
Yes, I know these quite well.
Although it might not let you. Oh, you got it. You do have a sub.
Yeah, and then you can also go to this is on Instagram. The surfs MN. That's our Instagram thing right there. Is just at the surfs Minnesota.
There we go. So on Instagram, you can check that out. Go to Facebook if you guys like music. There we go. We're gonna raid on out because we all know that rating is important. We're gonna raid out to Ollie Robs. Ollie Robs is doing video editing and hanging out and chatting. Ollie Robs is a great content creator. He's a lot of fun. Got a great personality. You can find him on Twitch and TikTok and all of those places. So come along with us and hang out with the one and only Ollie Robs. I will potentially, very likely, unless I'm sick with COVID, because who knows, I will be back tomorrow. We're going to be doing some more of the beta test of Ars Notoria. Of course, Wednesday is tabletop role-playing. We're doing Pathfinder First Edition, the Stolen Souls campaign. By the way, guys, there's a new overlay for Stolen Souls. You're going to love it. And of course, that evening, we've got a new code for you for Idle Champions of Forgotten Realms. So if you play Idle Champions, you want that code, you'll be able to get that after our Stolen Souls game. That'll run all night long. Podcast, interviews, and Idle Champions till Thursday morning when I come back with Baldur's Gate. And of course, Friday, I believe I'm doing Ars Notoria again, the beta test for that. So that's this week's schedule, guys. Of course, unless I turn positive for COVID, which hopefully we don't. Let's all cross our fingers and make sure that doesn't happen. Curly Girl finally tested negative today, so I've got about 3-4 days to make sure I don't test positive. So that's the plan. So for Midwest Miniature Guy, I am Nick, and thank you all for watching Off the Pod right here.
Thanks, folks.
On Epic Realms. Have a good night, everyone, and take care.
See ya.